Hi, Phil Kurth here, and in this video we're going to take a look at how you can exclude ACF fields from rendering on an ACF front-end form. Now this video is specifically aimed at people using our Advanced Forms plugin. Okay, so if you're not using Advanced Forms or Advanced Forms Pro, this video doesn't apply to you because we're basically using features of the plugin. All right, so let's take a really quick look at what we've got set up first so you understand the context. So here I've got a form on the front end. Okay, it's a really basic front end. And if I go and look at the edit window for this page, you'll see this form is being rendered with an advanced form shortcode. Okay, so we're just basically using a shortcode to render the form within the pages or the post's content. Now, if I jump over to some other areas of the site here so you can get an idea. In forms, we've got our customer inquiry form, which if I click on that, if you're not familiar with advanced forms, you can basically get the shortcode from here, okay? And this form is set up to just output this on submission. It's connected to the customer inquiry fields field group, which we can have a quick look at in a second. And you'll see that that field group's got 4 fields, or this form's mapping 4 fields within that group. I've also got this set up to create posts of a custom post type. So we're creating a post type called customer inquiry. It's just for the example purposes, okay? So basically what this means is when somebody submits a form, it creates a post in customer inquiries, and we're going to take a look at how we work with that. So let's have a quick look at the field group, just so you can understand this part. So we've got a field group called customer inquiry fields. It's got 4 fields in it, okay, and it's got 2 location rules. And so basically this field group is set up to display on our customer inquiry form, and it's also set up to display on our customer inquiry post type. Okay, so if I was to, for example, come and look at customer inquiries, add new, you'll see that we have a field group down here with all 4 fields. Cool. All right, so that's the context. Let me leave this alone, come back over to our page. All right, so what we're going to take a look at now is how to modify what fields show on the front end to the user. And you might wonder why you would want to do this. And a really good example, I've just got a field here that probably doesn't make sense for a customer to know, or it's the kind of field they wouldn't know, and that's customer ID. But there are plenty of examples of where this would make sense. So, so if you have a quick think about a workflow here, you might have people sending in, well, for example, you might have logged in users sending customer inquiries, okay, and then there's data that goes along with that inquiry that helps the site administrators manage that inquiry. So it might be things like, there might be a select field that you use internally to categorize or assign something, or you might create relationships between that customer and products, something like that. In this case, I've got customer ID, and that's the field that we're going to be working with, just as an example. But you know, this could be, I mean, customer ID could be something that you dynamically populate using PHP based on the current user on form submission. So there's lots of possibilities here. But ultimately, what we want is as much control as possible in the WordPress admin when managing our inquiries, but we want to have a minimal form for customers to interact with. We don't want to confuse them, and you know, lots of times there are going to be data that you don't want them to have access to or control over. Okay, so let's have a quick look. So I'll just, as an example, I'll just submit a form here. I'm just going to type gibberish because that's how I roll. So, gibberish. I'm going to type gibberish because I can't talk and type at the same time. So I'm going to submit this, and you'll see, thanks for your message, we'll be in touch soon. If I come over here to customer inquiries, you'll see that we've got our submission here. Open that up, and we've got our form fields. They're all populated except customer ID because I excluded that, of course. All right, so that's basically the workflow here. So now the site administrators might go, okay, cool, you know, this, maybe customer ID isn't the best example, maybe something like an assignment would have made more sense, but now they can, you know, go and fill in a piece of data to assign a customer ID to this submission. All right, so let's take a look at how we could now, Sorry, let me reload this page. Obviously now it makes sense to not have this customer ID, like they appear on the front end. Okay, it's an admin only field. We don't want it appearing on the front end. So let's take a look at how we can exclude it. There are a few different ways. Advanced Forms offers up a few different ways to configure the form, and there also offers up some ways to dynamically control the rendering of the form. So we're going to look at 3 different ways to control this form's rendering. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to look at the shortcode approach, and that's because that's what we're currently using to render the form. So we're using this advanced form shortcode, and if we go and look at the docs, if you were to look at, I'm on the wrong page here, if we look at, no, we want guides, we want available arguments, and we want exclude fields. So this exclude fields arg is what we want to work with here. So by looking at this document here, it's just a simple little block of information. You can see that exclude fields works on the shortcode, and it also works when using the advanced form function to render the form via PHP. So let's start with the shortcode. Okay, so basically, let's say I want to exclude the customer ID. So I'm going to say exclude fields, and I'm going to type customer ID because that's the field's field name, and I'm going to update this. All right, so if I come over and I view the page on the front end, we're going to see that the field no longer appears here. Okay, and that's exactly what we want. But if we were to look in the admin side, we can see the field. All right, so this is basically what we want to do here. So that shortcode configuration option basically just controls it on the fly. So that's hiding the customer ID. Now that's using the field name. So what I might do is just empty that out and show you another possibility here, because as well as field names, it will also support field keys. So let's have a look here. So we've got the data key. I'm going to grab the field key just directly from the UI, and I'm going to stick that in the excluded fields argument. And then I'm going to reload this form, and we'll see that the field once again is hidden. All right, so that's cool. So you can use either field names or field keys. It doesn't matter. In addition to this, you can use a comma separated string to hide multiple fields. So let's say I want to hide the email as well. I'll just say email, and the reason I'm using email is because the field, the actual field name itself, where are we? So the field name is email, okay? So it's not using the label, it's using the field name. All right, so I've got the field key for customer ID, and I've got email, and I'll update that, reload this page, and you should now see we're now short 2 fields. And that sort of leads me to the next point, is that you can use a combination of keys and fields, field names. It really doesn't matter. You've got a lot of flexibility here. Okay, so that's using the shortcode. So the shortcode is probably the most common use case because you might be using it in page builders and whatnot. But let's say you're also using the advanced form function, okay? So if I go over to my editor here, well, I've got our content here. I might just open up a block, advanced form. We want to get that form key. Oh, no, this one here. Get the form key, drop that in there, and at this point, I'll just save this and I'll remove this shortcode. Okay, move that block. All right, so update this. This will be empty. And when I reload this page, because we've got the shortcode being rendered by the function, we should still see the form. All right, cool. So we've got our form. All right, and just to prove that it is the function, comment that out, reload, and there's no form. All right, good. Reload this page. Cool. All right, so there's our form. Now, if I go over here and I fire up some args and I use the exclude fields args in the function here, I can also just go and write the field name or the field key here. And there we go, we've got it hidden. All right, so you can obviously use, just like the shortcode, you can use field keys or field names, it doesn't matter. So we'll go the, is that the right key? Let's have a look. Just give me a second, reload this. Okay. Field key, grab that there. Okay, so we've got both the email field and the customer ID field, which we're using via the field key. Reload, we should be short 2 fields. Good. All right, that's exactly what we wanted to achieve there. All right, so let's go for one last scenario here. And what we're going to do is I'm just going to clear this out. I'm going to go back to using the shortcode. All right, because what we're going to use is a PHP filter now. So let me go over to our admin, down to forms. I'll grab the shortcode again from the display panel here. Oops, single click. And I'll drop that into a shortcode block like so. And we're not going to modify it here. We're just going to let it do its thing uninhibited, I guess. But what we're going to do now is we're going to use a PHP filter to hide the fields we want. So what we're going to use is a PHP filter to dynamically control the form args before the form is rendered. So I'll come back over to our docs and we'll go down to our filters reference. We're going to use AF form args. All right, that's the filter we want. And if you have a read of these docs, you'll see that there's a bit of variation in how you can implement it. I want to go per the example, so I'm going to specify the key in the actual in the hook. So it's like a dynamic hook more or less. So I'm just going to grab this code snippet and I'm just going to stick it at the top of the document, just because the template, just because it's it's nice and easy to see what's going on here. You can obviously put that anywhere. You can put it in a function, in a plugin. You can put it in functions.php. It doesn't matter. I'd also suggest if you're pulling from the docs, use some kind of a short prefix or a function prefix that makes sense to your project, so you don't have conflicts in other ways. So obviously there are a bunch of args that you can control and they're all documented, but what we're going to be looking at is the exclude fields arg. All right, so let's take a look here. Let's just say we've got our field key here. So before I do that, I'm just going to re-render that page and see that we've got all fields in place. I'm going to use we'll pass the field key to the excluded fields, not excluded. We want exclude fields. I'm going to reload. And what did I do wrong? All right, hang on. So have I got the right available arguments? Exclude fields. Have I got this correct here? Exclude. Oh, I haven't specified the form key. Go me. All right, so get that form key here. All right, I'll go back over to here. So always remember to put the form key in. All right, sweet. Now let's go and reload this. If anything goes wrong here, it's because I've got the wrong field key. No, cool. All right, so that's hidden that field. All right, so that's how you do it with a PHP filter. And just so you understand like the benefit of doing it this way, you've got programmatic control now, right? So with the other options, you're basically specifying it and it's more or less locked. It's not so much the case with the function, as it's open. It's a bit open-ended with the function. But when you're using a filter and you're hooking it in via a plugin or something, you can basically have this ability to go and assess things. So you could say, for example, you might say if empty get, let's just say show customer ID. I want to spell that correctly. Okay, so so let's say if there is a URL parameter, or we're using empty, so what we're saying is if there isn't a URL parameter, or if the URL parameter is empty, it will hide that field, okay? So that might make sense when I say it, but I'll show you. So let's reload this page. We're going to see, what have I got here? Oh, good, yeah, cool, so that's right. All right, so reload the page, so the customer ID field is missing, all right? But what we could do is go and add some data. In this case, because we're checking for empty, we can add anything. But we add it to this show customer ID query string argument or parameter, and you'll see that it reveals the customer ID field. And just to point out, like it will, because it's we're using empty, if you throw a 0 in there, it will hide it, all right, because 0 is technically empty. Or if it's like an empty, there's no value, it will hide it. Or if you just put the flag on there, it will hide it. All right, so it needs to be a non-empty value. Okay, so that's basically, like, it took a bit longer than I'd like, but that's basically how 3 ways you can go about excluding fields from rendering on front-end forms when using Advanced Forms or Advanced Forms Pro. If you enjoyed this, like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.